Tell us about, I guess, the environment that the fintech and the digital space is operating in. Of course, it has just been such an unusual year. At the same time, the monetary conditions are very supportive, shall we say, of new endeavours. What do you make of where we're heading into, particularly as we have this backdrop of some of the regulatory challenges in China as well?
Well, good morning. Good to talk to you, all of you again. Back to Singapore FinTech Festival. This is a great time for us to understand what's the impact of 2020 and what should we look for 2021. And like to a question around the opportunity, I think FinTech saw the best opportunity during the crisis because everybody wanted to digitize because there was a very low touch and high tech construct. So there was a huge demand for technology adoption during this crisis. Banks were digitizing faster. In fact, if you look at the numbers, the investment numbers, almost half of the money went to fintechs who are helping the banks to digitize, helping the SMEs to digitize. So this was a great time for fintechs, actually, if you look in hindsight. So I think COVID-19 did accelerate the process of digital transformation. And we are looking to 2021 with a lot of optimism as banks and various ecosystems get into truly a digital economy.
So we had the licenses granted. So we had the first licenses granted late last week to the first digital banks in Singapore. We had C, as well as the Grab Singtel tie-up and Ant Financial. Why each of these entities? Particularly, I'm interested in why giving the license to Ant, particularly with the regulatory cloud that still the firm is still trying to work through.
Look, we looked at very independent of what happened in their home country. Just based on merit, we're looking at what value proposition they bring to the market, especially the Ant. You took an example. We are focused on how they can bring the wholesale bank, the SME financing into truly a digital transformation. So I think that what happened in China didn't have much of bearing on the decision we made on whom to give licenses. So I think Ant is a great company. It's a great technology platform. They have done a fabulous job in truly driving a real end-to-end digital services for the segment. So we look forward to them being successful in Singapore and beyond.
Well, you know, sometimes to me it's not surprising that financial regulators, banking regulators around the world are going to continue to look very closely at fintech companies because they're a slightly different entity, they're not as well tested, the regulations apply and then they don't apply. How have you guided this process in Singapore? Where have the potholes been that have been tripped on, and how have you gotten through them?
Look, there is a bit of a confusion here. I think what you're talking about, a big tech trying to do a financial services without being regulated. In Singapore, all this entity will be regulated, and they'll follow exactly the same level playing regulatory applications every institution have today in Singapore. So there's no difference between a tech applying for a bank license and existing banks here. So that's that distinction you must make to understand the implication, and if you want to compare against Singapore versus other markets. But the question on big tech, because most of the worry was around running financial services without much regulation, that was the big concern out there. But I don't see much of issues in Singapore because they are going to be regulated. They're a regulated entity. They'll be subjected to the same regulatory expectations as we have for the banks. So I don't see much of issues what you just articulated.
So obviously Singapore is getting it right. I think that's part of your answer. So where do you think this goes next? What is this infusion of new models due to the traditional banks, or is it more of a case where ultimately everybody's fintech, right? Where everybody has to adopt this model?
Absolutely. I think the drive is not to a very platform-driven finance. There's a drive data-driven finance. So there's a huge surge to come to this model, and having this digital bank license operating in Singapore, it creates more competition. It creates much more faster acceleration to this new model. So it's all good news, and I think consumers are going to benefit a lot, and financial services will become much more wider, much more available in terms of segment who can access financial services, and which was the challenge before. So the inclusion part, the expansion of the financial services, the new way of thinking about how to provide finance without being present on your face. So this all new business models will see a lot of growth in this sector.